We made it, everyone. We have finally gotten to the end of the season. All the mystery boxes, references to other shows, lore changes, blood, snow, and tears, we have finally reached the final boss and we're ready to know the answers to all the mysteries. Yes, sir, you can bet that this finale will live up to the overwhelming hype that The Legend of Ruby Sunday gave us. Some of you watched it in the theaters, others of you waited until the clock struck whatever o'clock, but we were all super satisfied with the ending. Right? Is there still time to do a do-over? So the episode wastes zero time with a recap that is just zombie Mary Do saying she brings the dust of death only to have her say it again as soon as the titles are over. Redundancy is fun. Mel saves the doctor, who seems to just want to stand there with his mouth open, still, and gets him to move his ass and run over to her little fucking scooter while everyone in the room takes dirt to the face and falls to the floor. For reasons unknown, she takes the time to hand the doctor her helmet and tells him to hop on her scooter. Unit tries to shoot Sutekh and keeps trying to shoot Sutekh even when it's apparent that it isn't going to work. Ruby has locked herself away in the time window and it starts up and her ethereal mom walks by, triggered by her memory, I guess. Unit finally figures out that they can't shoot this thing, completely give up, and then get Thanos'd. Well, everyone except the Vlinks. He just has his head pop off. Kate radios the doctor about birds, and Unit is gone. The doctor is sad. The world starts to get dusted, but because Melanie has the world's fastest Vespa, the doctor is safe. Carla dies. Mrs. Flood says more cryptic shit while her and Cherry die together. Meanwhile, the floor Ruby is on with the time window apparently has no ventilation and is sealed airtight because they are safe in this room from the dust of death. The TARDIS in the time window from the past that the doctor talked about being more solid than everything else in the memory groans as well. That's when the doctor and Mel open the door to the room and come in, apparently also missing all the dust that has no doubt engulfed all of London by this point, what with two massively fast-moving clouds of dust killing everyone and Melanie driving away from one and into another. The doctor orders the guards in there to get out and get to Bunker 17, which also is apparently dust of death proof. Enters the memory TARDIS, which is apparently the old man TARDIS due to the cramped, hoarder, clustered aspect of it. Rather than being kind of weirded out by this whole new TARDIS, the doctor smiles, grabs a TV, and tells Mel and Ruby that this is a memory TARDIS, so Ruby needs to remember real hard and it will become a real boy. The TARDIS finishes baking in the memory oven.
File's done.
When Sutekh appears with the real TARDIS behind them. The time window powers up, and so does the TV that the doctor took, and apparently all of the doctor's memories involve shots of the BBC broadcast, and it starts showing scenes from the Pyramid of Mars. Sutekh explains that instead of being trapped, he grabbed hold of the TARDIS and has been traveling with the doctor, hidden in the TARDIS, since then. Because of that, he has learned everything about the TARDIS and can bend it to his will. He also explains that he birthed all the Mary-Dos everywhere that the TARDIS landed and used the name Susan Triad as a trap to get the doctor. And now he has wiped out all life everywhere and in every time that the doctor has landed since then. So the doctor rightfully wonders why he is still alive and senses doubt in Sutekh, and the three of them escape into the memory TARDIS. Mel gets nostalgic, and the doctor flies the TARDIS off the Earth. It starts to come apart, and they use some intelligent rope that looks like regular rope to tie all the controls down to stabilize it. The doctor explains the Mary-Do thing, and they go out from the doors of the TARDIS and look at the Earth, now nearly fully covered in dust. Everyone everywhere the Doctor has traveled is dead. Even the Daleks. And the Doctor blames himself because he liked to travel, even though he didn't concoct this plan or even know that it was happening, and was really just the vehicle. So he cries. Again. And screams. Again, I might have been moved, but there hasn't been a week that has gone by without the tracking tear, so it sort of came off as silly. Sometime later, Sutekh is super pleased that he's killed everything, but is annoyed at one thing. Susan Triad, now cosplaying as Ruby's mom on Christmas, suggests it to be the Time Lord, but Sutekh is talking about Ruby's mom because it is super important that he know who her mom is. The Doctor walks around on a new planet, also cosplaying as Ruby's mom, and finds a woman. She offers him a Chaffee, can't remember shit, and lost a baby at some point but doesn't remember it. They prattle on about things that the lady doesn't remember. The Doctor asks her for some metal, and because Shooty has a real nice face, she gives him a spoon. And the Doctor cries. Again. Anyway, she dies, and the Doctor uses the spoon to power up the TV so that he can finish the Pyramid of Mars serial. Ruby asks why Sutekh started to attack again after all of these years, and the TV, which is still somehow connected to the time window, shows them her mom again, and the Doctor theorizes that Sutekh is baffled by Ruby's mom because he didn't get to see her either, and I don't know, maybe he's worried that he's the baby daddy. Sutekh starts trying to get into Melanie's head when the time window, aka the TV, shows them all Roger ap Gwilym, because he did mandatory DNA testing for the entire population in 2046 and likely tested Ruby's mom. Team Memory TARDIS head to 2046 and put on military gear for some reason. They hook up to the DNA scan because conveniently the Doctor helped set up the program at some point, but didn't really want to keep that information on his Sonic, also for reasons. He sends Melanie out of the room to keep watch, and Ruby reads the name after another snowstorm. Melanie submits to the will of Sutekh and brings them back to where Sutekh is so he can finally find out the name of this totally non-important person. Ruby and the Doctor don't tell Sutekh the name, so he gives the green pane to the Doctor. Ruby brings the TV over to Sutekh, but whoopsie, drops it, and then hooks the intelligent rope up around his dog collar? Dog collar, really? With the help of the sonic gloves, they hold Sutekh while the Doctor blows a whistle to wake up the TARDIS, and it blows Harriet Arbinger with the heart of the TARDIS and dislodges from Sutekh. The Doctor and Ruby run into TARDIS proper, hook the dog leash up to the console, and take Sutekh for a ride in the vortex. And because Sutekh is a dog, he likes sticking his head out the window on trips, so the Doctor drags him outside the TARDIS through the time vortex. According to the Doctor, if you bring death to death, it brings life. It's kind of like a double negative. And yes, this undoes Sutekh's sandstorm surprise and reverses everyone that got dusted. We're supposed to be super happy to see everyone come back to life, which we're not because we were never convinced they would stay dead in the first place. And Cherry and Mrs. Flood laugh and hug, even though Mrs. Flood was a total bitch to Cherry right before they died. Flood screams, "That clever boy," making me hope that she is crazy old Clara, still stuck 1 second before her death, only now hell-bent on the destruction of the Doctor. It won't happen, but at least it would be cooler than what we're likely to get this upcoming season. The Doctor basically calls himself the God of Life while yelling at Sutekh, which, hell, he probably is, cuts the rope with the TARDIS doors, disintegrating Sutekh into the time vortex. It's
the Sutekh demise.
Sometime later, and somehow Susan Triad is still alive, and assuming it worked this way all over the universe, there is now over 1 million Mary-Doos still running around free of Daddy Sutekh. So Kate offers her a job at UNIT because the overall qualifications to work there are beyond anyone's actual comprehension. UNIT uses Ruby's DNA and finds her mom. Guess what? She's nobody. A filthy junk trader. Actually, no, she's just some random woman. Louise Allison Miller, and she was 15 when she gave birth to Ruby and abandoned her because her stepdad was an asshole. Ruby's dad is nobody too, William Benjamin Garnett, who was also 15 at the time. Ruby doesn't get why everyone was so up in arms over her mom when she was just a normal person, and the doctor explains that because everyone made such a big deal out of her, she became important, and she was actually pointing at the sign that had Ruby Road on it, I guess to tell the doctor to name her Ruby. Good thing they did that anyway, because the doctor left without figuring that out or telling anyone to do that, and then Ruby officially changes her name to Road Sunday. Anyway, Ruby goes and meets her mom, doesn't call her a deadbeat, starts a relationship with her, and tells the doctor she's not going to travel with him anymore. And the doctor is sad again, but also glad, and then Mrs. Flood breaks the fourth wall again to tease season 2. The end. Oh man, do we have a lot to get to here. Buckle up, buttercups, it's gonna be a bumpy ride. Let's do the right thing, be positive. So first, let's start off with the things that I liked. I did like that they used the original voice actor of Sutekh. To be quite honest, the reason Sutekh is even remembered as the big threat he was is because of Gabriel Wolf. New Who fans will remember him as the voice of the Beast in the episode Satan's Pit, but older fans will know him as the Sutekh. It really wasn't because Sutekh was scarier than any of the other villains the Doctor faces week after week, at least not to me. What I remembered was the voice. The soft and uncaring way that Sutekh understood his own power and wasn't impressed at all with the likes of a Time Lord. He just exuded power and malice. It was memorable. So it absolutely was the right choice to bring Gabriel Wolf back. I do wish he had used some of the same soft voice that he had during his first appearance, but I was still good with listening to the original Sutekh. You know what? I won't lie that I didn't like the scene between Ruby and her mom in a vacuum. Apart from the episode and the full season, it was a nice scene because RTD can write emotional scenes like this. It felt real because Millie is a very likable actress and Ruby was a very likable character, and at least during this scene I felt invested. We'll have more to say about the context in another section of this review, but RTD was leaning into his strengths here, and the overall scene in a complete vacuum worked. Another vacuum scene that did work for me was the Spoon Lady scene. I've read a lot of people that made fun of this scene, and I'm not really sure why. Taken for what it is, it's pretty great. It's paced well, the actress is compelling, and she felt real. And it came at a point in the episode when it needed to slow down. The part with the daughter she couldn't remember was sad enough and fit the themes of the entire season. I just feel if this whole moment had been set up better, we would have felt a lot more. We get the understanding in this scene of how Sutekh's elimination of not just the universe, but the universe throughout time impacts the memory of those that are left. I like that and could appreciate that if you're going to have Sutekh kill off somebody from the 1800s, it's going to have a butterfly effect on those that are still alive in the present. Again, the scene in a vacuum is good. The problem with all of what happens after Sutekh's return is setup. I also liked Melanie's heel turn. Melanie grew a lot on me this season. I wasn't ever really a fan of hers during her companion run. She sort of screamed a lot and she felt a bit useless. I want my companions to have a bit more depth to them than she was able to bring, but again, that's more of a writer thing than it is an actress thing. But when she shows up at Unit, she is much stronger, and her scenes in the last episode with the Doctor had some meat to them, especially when the Doctor has his tantrum before meeting Susan Triad and she gets him back on his feet. She didn't have a lot to work with during this episode, but I liked how she played her role in the memory TARDIS as worn so very thin and tired that Sutekh could infiltrate her mind. Was it rushed? Yes. Were all of the scenes that I'm talking about rushed and could have been executed better? Yes. But I've taken quite a few shots at Melanie throughout this season, and it was nice to have her be a positive rather than a negative. Good on you, Mel. Yeah. That's it. That's all the things that I liked in this episode. A voice actor, a couple of scenes that had a bit of emotion to them and worked outside the overall narrative, and the 2 minutes where Melanie turned bad. Oh boy, this isn't going to be pretty. Okay guys, let's get on with the things I didn't like.
Kings, this is the Doctor. We're on our way back. Try to contain that thing.
Contain that thing? Hi, you are the Doctor, right? You do know what Sutekh can do because you were there. Or maybe not, because later you have to watch the Pyramid of Mars on your little portable TV. But presuming you are the same Doctor as Tom Baker's Doctor, you no doubt remember how powerful Sutekh is and how futile Unit would be against him. Try to contain that thing? They have a better chance of containing a Dalek than pulling guns on the God of Death. Even if the God of Death thing is really just some moniker he took on, much like you are the Doctor in pretty much name only, you've seen this thing kill before, and considering it toyed with you like a plaything last time, it's doubtful Kate, Donna's kid, and the Vlinks are gonna stand much of a chance. Sure, I know Morris is pretty smart from the Asteroid Ferry, but even he wasn't smart enough to remember that Unit has a treasure trove of alien trinkets lying around somewhere, and maybe they would have had a better shot of containing what they know at this point to be some kind of alien smoke dog. And sure, I can stretch my brain enough to come up with an excuse as to why these morons don't have these alien weapons on the floor of the command center, behind glass stating, "break in case of alien apocalypse," but aren't you idiots supposed to be at least studying these artifacts to see if you can advance your own weaponry? How many bullets stop a Dalek? Or a Cyberman? It's weird that you even have man bullets at this point, or even carry a gun. By now I would expect all of you to have plungers and wisps pointed everywhere in the room, and the second old Harbinger started spouting off about pantheons, you would have exterminated her ass to Kingdom Come. And if that didn't work, you had one of those fucking jail people arc things right there in your last base that blew up. I would have assumed that you would have picked that up, and even if it didn't survive the blast, at least gone and got the pieces and reconstructed it. That's a pretty damn handy thing to have, wouldn't you say? That could have trapped Sutekh in a similar way that the Doctor had intended to do the last time. And if not all that, tell Unit Command to get to the time window so you guys could at least regroup, since it appears the time window was safe from Sutekh's sneezing powder. The Doctor goes into a long soliloquy about why Ruby's mom is important because everyone made her important. And somehow her mythos made her more powerful than a Time Lord or even Sutekh. No it didn't. To be quite honest here, the explanation is that because the TARDIS was connected to the time window, it got connected to Ruby when she got into the TARDIS for the first time, and now whenever she thinks about her birth, the memory brought in the snow that was falling, and I guess that one time she got shot and was dying. Sure, you have to do some mental jumping jacks to get there, but that at least explains the snow. Then the explanation that Ruby's mom dressed in a black poncho with a hoodie, pointed at the signpost that was sort of behind the Doctor to silently tell him that they should name her daughter Ruby. And because Sutekh was also watching at this time while he was infecting the TARDIS, he got invested into who she was too, because he couldn't see her face. Your guess is as good as mine as to why the God of Death would be so interested in this little moment, considering all the other up the TARDIS has been privy to since the Pyramid of Mars. Your guess is also as good as mine as to why the Doctor claims his memory changed during the flashback in Space Babies. I'm sure there's some reason, but I just don't feel like doing the mental acrobatics to figure it out or make theories. So what it amounts to isn't that Ruby's mom became powerful because everyone thought she was special and thus she became powerful. It really comes down to curiosity killed the cat, or in this case dog, and a whole host of insane coincidences due to some hungry goblins trying to steal a baby at the same time. And what you're really trying to say is that the audience is the one who made her powerful because we all theorized as to who she was, but what that amounts to is a shit ton of misdirection for one of the shittiest magic tricks that this show has ever tried to pull off. Why the did you bring Sutekh back if you're just gonna kill him off? He accomplishes his big thing and is able to bring his ashes to ashes accelerator to just about all of space and time. But then Smart Rope is just able to tow him through the time vortex and he dies? I'm so glad we brought him back. What a waste of a good villain from the classic days. Let's talk about old Sutekh for a minute and his journey, shall we? Sutekh was last seen getting stuffed into a time corridor. But, like one of the greatest lines in all of science fiction, somehow Sutekh returned. Instead of going into the corridor, he latched onto the TARDIS and learned how to use it. All the while, he used the perception filter to birth out a Mary-Do everywhere the Doctor went. Now, remember that the TARDIS has been shown to have its own personality and in some circles is a sentient time machine. Now, I'll look over the fact that when it was made into a woman and had some weird sexual tension with the Doctor, it didn't mention that really important fact, or ever display it as a warning to the Doctor in all the times it chose where he should go and who he should save. Now, I won't also count the billion years that the Doctor spent dying in the confession dial, and we don't exactly know how old the Doctor is, but we can be conservative and say that Sutekh has been on the TARDIS for at least 1,200 years. And in that time, as stated by Sutekh, he ascended into his godhood, and I assume somehow took over the pantheon of gods, or formed it, or whatever. I'm not sure how he had the time to do that while stowing away in the trunk of the car, but it's science fiction and Doctor Who, so suspension of disbelief is a necessity in some cases. But why now? What is so damn important to a god about this woman that you just have to know who she is? Like I said before, there has been plenty of weird ass going on in all these travels with the TARDIS, and that probably would have garnered your attention more than some woman abandoning her baby on Christmas Day. Shit, I can't even imagine how crazy you must have been trying to figure out what happened to Amy's baby. Hell, if you wanted to know so bad, you could have just let your last Mary-Do give her free technology to the world, and then UNIT would have just been like, huh, I guess she was just a nice smart old lady. And then let the Doctor and UNIT figure out who the mom was with a simple trek over to 2046 and a DNA sample from Ruby. Or better yet, since your evil plan worked and you were able to kill all the things, why not just kill the Doctor and Ruby too? Forget about the mom thing, and you'll be able to live out eternity trying to get over the dust allergy that you're sure to get. Because if you had, you would have won! Plus, why does Sutekh die at the end of this episode? Of course, I am assuming that he died. It's going to take some pretty fancy writing to bring him back from surviving a ride on the time vortex outside the 73-yard protective TARDIS area. But I'm now supposed to be impressed whenever the Mara comes back? Or Blowhole, Tweedledee and Tweedledum, or whatever the bull god Mrs. Flood ends up being? I didn't like the manipulation of the TARDIS by Sutekh. Or at least I should say I didn't like the execution of it. I fully agree that the TARDIS being manipulated into turning on the Doctor sounds like one of the best ideas ever for a Doctor Who season. But there are no real consequences of it here. Sutekh taking over the TARDIS and being wrapped around it and controlling it is fucking monumental, knowing the history of this show, but it's treated here like it's an afterthought. Sure, you had the groans here and there throughout the season, but even that was few and far between and had no real bearing on an episode other than the Doctor looking a little bit perplexed about it, and that's all. There are two constants on this show, the Doctor and the TARDIS, and dare I say, it is the Doctor's one true love. Having it betray the Doctor would be one of the coolest fucking things to ever happen on this show. But you treat it as an inconvenience rather than the devastating impact that this would have on him. I'm not saying he's in love with that box, although this once respected writer did. But the Doctor has shown more propensity to find and protect his blue box more than his own family or companions at certain points, and I find it very odd that he wasn't about to fuck everything up the moment he saw the naughty doggo with his arms around it and telling the Doctor that it was his no more. Things I didn't understand.
Birds will sing again. There will be birds.
What in the actual fuck is this speech from Kate before she dies? To quote Kate as she's about to die, "I have to hope the birds will sing again. There will be birds." Huh. Well, that certainly was no tears in the rain final speech from a character about to die. Now I'm going to be honest and I'll let everybody know that I do not believe myself to be the world's biggest Doctor Who fan. Obviously, I love it. Every video I have made since I started this channel is dedicated to it. This is my niche. This is my fandom. But I will be damned if I can remember Kate having any obsession or love shown for birds. So unless there's some Big Finish audio drama about Kate's birdwatching group or the secret friendship she has with Mike Tyson over their love of pigeons, I don't know what the fuck this speech is. RTD, sorry man, but when I see this, all I can picture is you sitting by your computer, writing the script, trying to figure out what Kate was going to say when she dies that's going to make an impact and not coming up with anything. This is some first draft bullshit. Also, Mel's reaction to all this is fucking hilarious.
There's nothing we can do except fight.
Yeah, Mel, no shit. That is literally what the Doctor does in every situation. Yeah, I need a bit of clarification on this memory TARDIS thing. So the Doctor is able to enter it, then comes out and tells Ruby that it is able to become a real boy because it's a memory of a time machine, so her memories are making it real. Of course, one should remember themselves that Ruby was a newborn at the time and never even saw the TARDIS, even if she had the abilities that no human child ever has. Doctor, she didn't know it was there. You did. So asking her to remember harder won't do it because she doesn't have that memory. And even if you're talking about her memories of that VHS footage she watches every Christmas, she couldn't see the TARDIS in it because the footage sucks and it didn't actually happen until Unit figured it out in the last episode. How the hell is it able to feed on memories to make itself tangible when the person that is supposed to remember it has no memory of it? I don't hate the idea of it. Hell, I was super excited to see Jamie back in the TARDIS one more time, so I can get on board. I just don't understand how it happened. Yes, I'm coming back to it. So, Sutekh rode around on the TARDIS since the end of the Pyramids of Mars. It's weird that it's explained this way when they had a built-in excuse with the salt being spread at the edge of the universe. If that moment had been the explanation of when Sutekh was able to infiltrate the TARDIS, then all the groaning and the Meridu clues fit within the narrative. The only reason I can figure out to have him on the TARDIS from Pyramids is so that he can have his ancient fart cloud impact all of time, and subsequently to have every planet affected. But you mentioned earlier that Sutekh's fairy dust keeps spreading. So you could have just gone with that, and it would have made even more logical sense than having him on the TARDIS for as long as he was. Hell, even Spoon Lady surviving on that planet as long as she did would have made more sense with that explanation. I get that the season was only 8 episodes long, and 2 of them were dedicated to explaining Sutekh's return, so maybe you were worried that the audience wouldn't think all of time was impacted? But you have let Big Finish fill in the gaps in the past, and some throwaway lines about other adventures we didn't see is pretty common in Doctor Who, so I think that would have worked just fine. In fact, Melanie way underplays the amount of places and times the Doctor has materialized by estimating it in the hundreds rather than the likely hundreds of thousands, so I really don't understand the need to explain it the way that you did. Look, I'm self-aware enough to realize that all of my reviews are nitpick in nature. It's my superpower. A passing asteroid gave me the powers of nitpicking TV shows to death, and not my overall negative nature that I was born with. But even I deem some of my observations as just kind of being overly nitpicky. Rather than ignore them, I dedicate a whole section to them called
Nitpick Corner!
Mel, why did you give the Doctor a helmet? You know he can regenerate, right? And even if he gets by Sutekh's gift of Sandstorm, and can't, neither will you. Plus, unless that little scooter of yours has some nitrous in it like we're in some sort of Fast and Furious movie, I have issues with your Vespa being able to outrun the death cloud that a literal god decides he is now going to cloud the entire world with. Like, I know you don't know that, but the Doctor does, and he just accepts not only a helmet, safety first, but also hops on it like the zombie woman is the only bad thing happening. So why is Morris eating a slice of pizza after everyone's back at unit headquarters? Hey, I'm all for realism and figure everyone might be a little bit peckish after being defeated by the ultimate dust bunny, but nobody else is eating any of it, and it just makes it look like they indulged the smart kid with his own pizza party. This was a bad episode. Maybe you loved it and think I suck. I completely understand. It happens sometimes. But there are so many logical leaps that need to be made to understand how all this happened that it becomes really underwhelming. I really wanted to like it when it came out, and maybe I set my expectations too high considering the return of Sutekh and the 2 Pantheon gods we already saw this season were underwhelming too. So shame on me for getting duped a 3rd time, but damn, the resolution felt rushed as hell. It sucks Sutekh was wasted the way that he was in his death, if they don't decide to bring him back anytime soon, amounting to leashing a god dog and taking him for a walk. Imagine how much the Marvel nerds would have hated Endgame if they defeated the likes of Thanos by simply rubbing the Infinity Gauntlet on his face. I give Empire of Death a 2. I wanted to like it. I enjoyed the build-up to Sutekh's return, but was baffled by the way they decided to undo everything. Maybe if they had ended the season with everyone dying and the Doctor being stuck on the memory TARDIS and giving us time to wait for a resolution, it would have sat better with me. But I just didn't feel like The dusting of everyone at the very beginning of the episode and then bringing them back 30 minutes later was enough time for me to give it. So let's talk about the season as a whole. In my opinion, it certainly was better than 13's run. In fact, I dare say I cared a lot more about everything in these 9 episodes than I did in all 3 seasons that Jodie was at the helm. It's not her fault, really, but her run was marred by what amounted to, in my opinion, was some terrible writing, some poor execution on the Timeless Child story, and some shitty overarching villains. But honestly, looking back, I think I might have been a bit harsh on Chibnall. This season gave us space babies, a bi-generation, and some pantheon gods that ended up being dispatched in easy, convenient ways with no lasting effect. 73 Yards was an amazing episode, but considering it meant nothing to the rest of the season other than to remind us that Ruby feels abandoned because she was at birth, it continues to exist on its own because, in essence, she prevented the episode from even happening at all. I rate the season as a whole a 5. I was close to giving it a 4, but the high points were really fun and the show looked great, and Shooty and Millie do a great job of making me care about the show again. And some writers are better with the journey than they are with the destination, and I've always found RTD to be one of those. I've taken to highlighting people on Blue Sky that I follow or follow me, but I wanted to also highlight other content creators that I enjoy. I think it's important to consume other Doctor Who content creators, and it helps me get better, and I get a lot out of it. One that I've recently been obsessing over is the Who's He podcast. I'm adding their Blue Sky link in the description, but their podcast is a really fun listen. Hosted by Phil Cannon, Paul Connor, and Scott Cannon, this is one of those podcasts that I find really, really fun. The joy they bring in their analysis, and I absolutely love that one of the participants is a kid, or at least sounds like it, so sorry if you're not, which is Doctor Who's chief target audience. Now, I wouldn't let that fact deter you at all. This kid brings better insight to the discussions than many of the current Doctor Who podcasters and reviewers that you're likely to tune into, including this one. So do yourself a favor and check it out. So I'm pretty proud of the fact that we got through a full season before we ended up overlapping to the next one, considering I started this journey back in August. And I started out with 0 subscribers, and I made it to, at least as the writing of this long-ass script, 54. Not bad for making recaps and reviews of episodes well past their prime, with interest in Doctor Who being at its lowest point in between seasons. And if you have watched this overlong video this long and haven't yet subscribed, I'm not sure what's going to make you do it. I promise I don't get much better than this. Hit that button and we'll see you next time. And as always, fuck that ham was salty. I get that it looks cooler if Harriet Arbinger ducks while Unit unloads their human bullets into her, Sutekh, and the TARDIS. However, if they're just gonna turn to dust anyway, why? Like, instead of ducking down while Sutekh turns the bullets into dust, why not just start blowing the dust of death while they're shooting? I mean, maybe it doesn't look as cool, but it certainly leaves a stronger impression that there isn't shit anyone can do to stop this but the Doctor. I guess it was foreshadowing, since ducking down ended up getting her f***ed over by the TARDIS.